I'm proud of myself for being rude to the waiter. The restaurant wasn't crowded yet. It took forever for someone to approach our table. When the waiter finally arrived, he didn't even greet. US just muttered, "What do you want to drink?" I was with my sister Naomi and we exchanged glances. It was awkward, but we gave our orders. He didn't write anything down. And surprise, surprise, our drinks arrived wrong 20 minutes later. When Naomi politely mentioned the mistake, he sighed, dramatically snatched the glass and stomped off. That's when I noticed him leaning by the counter, whispering to another server. I couldn't catch it all, but I distinctly heard they never tip anyway. It hit me like a punch. We were the only Hispanic family in the room, and it didn't take much to realize who they meant. Naomi looked at me, her jaw tight. I told her to let it go. I wanted to see how far this would go. When our food finally came, it was cold. Naomi was about to complain, but I stopped her. I wasn't done yet. About halfway through our meal, my coworker Rachel walked in. She's white, bubbly, and the definition of America's sweetheart. The waiter practically sprinted to greet her with the friendliest smile. He even pulled out her chair when it was time to pay. I left a 0 tip as we were walking out. He followed us. Excuse me, was there an issue with my service? I turned to him and smiled. Oh no, your service was exactly what you think we deserve. His face went pale. Naomi laughed as we walked away. I've never felt more justified in being rude. Never considered myself a rude person. In fact, I usually go out of my way to be polite, especially to service workers. But this time, I was proud of myself for being rude. And here's why: the restaurant wasn't crowded. It wasn't even busy. My sister Naomi and I had been seated for about 15 minutes without so much as a glass of water. We weren't in a rush, but it started to feel pointed. Tables around us were being greeted. Orders were being taken. Servers were smiling. But us? Nothing. Finally, a waiter approached. No smile. No welcome. Not even eye contact. He mumbled, "What do you want to drink?" Naomi and I exchanged a glance, that quiet look siblings give each other when something's off. It was awkward, but we gave him our drink orders. He didn't write anything down, just turned and walked off. And surprise, surprise, our drinks came out wrong. Not a little wrong. Completely different from what we ordered. And it took 20 minutes. Naomi, always the gentler one, politely mentioned the mistake. He sighed, loud, theatrical, like we were ruining his day. Then he snatched the glass off the table and stomped off like a toddler denied candy. That's when I noticed something. He leaned against the counter near the kitchen, whispering to another server. I couldn't hear everything, but one sentence came through crystal clear. They never tip anyway. And just like that, it hit me. We were the only Hispanic family in the restaurant. It wasn't just bad service. It was targeted bad service. Naomi looked at me, her jaw tight. "Should we just leave?" she whispered. I shook my head. No. I want to see how far this goes. When our food finally arrived, it was cold. Like it had been sitting in the kitchen for 15 minutes, cold. Naomi picked up her fork to complain, but I stopped her. "Let it go," I said. "Not yet." Halfway through our sad, silent meal, the door opened. In walked Rachel, a coworker of mine. She's white, blonde, bubbly, the kind of person who smiles at babies and bakes cookies for the office. She radiates friendliness. Think, the human version of a golden retriever. And guess what happened? The same waiter practically sprinted over to her, greeted her with a smile that showed all his teeth, pulled out her chair, laughed at her jokes, offered her the specials, something we were never even told about. Naomi looked at me, eyebrows raised. "Are you seeing this?" "Oh, I'm seeing it," I said. He came back to check on Rachel's table twice before we'd even finished. We hadn't gotten a single "how is everything" since the food hit our table, and that's when I decided I wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. The check came, I paid in full. No complaints, no confrontation. And I left 0 tip. As we stood to leave, the waiter suddenly reappeared behind us. Excuse me," he said, clearly irritated. Was there an issue with my service? I turned to face him, and for the first time that night, I smiled. "Oh no," I said, calm and clear. "Your service was exactly what you think we deserve." His face went pale. Naomi let out a short, sharp laugh as we walked out. We didn't yell. We didn't escalate. We just let the weight of his own actions hang there, and I've never felt more justified in being. Rude Story 2. It was an early autumn morning in Zurich. The air was crisp, the leaves beginning to turn gold. Alina stood on her apartment's balcony, gazing at the lake with her coffee cup in hand. The serenity of the view should have comforted her, but instead, she felt restless. Life with Victor had become predictable, safe, and comfortable. Alina, who once thrived on the excitement of their early years, now found herself longing for something she couldn't quite name. That longing took shape. When she met Luca, it all started innocently enough. Luca was new to her office, a designer with a reputation for thinking outside the box. His work was bold, refreshing, and creative, everything that Alina's life was not. Where Victor was cautious, Luca was daring. Where Victor was methodical, Luca was spontaneous. During office meetings, Alina often found herself laughing at his jokes, lingering in conversations a little longer than she needed to. But it was one particular evening that changed everything. The firm had just landed a major client, and the team decided to celebrate with drinks at a local bar. Alina hadn't planned to stay long. Victor was waiting at home, after all. But Luca was there, and the way he looked at her made her feel something she hadn't felt in years. She told herself it was harmless. After all, a little flirtation never hurt anyone, right? As the night wore on and the drinks flowed, Luca confessed that he'd always admired Alina. She laughed it off, dismissing it as a joke. But when he brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, a spark ignited between them. That night, they shared their first kiss in the shadowy alleyway behind the bar, a moment of passion that would haunt Alina in the days to come. Alina told herself that it was just a fling. Victor didn't have to know. What harm could come from indulging in a bit of excitement outside her marriage? But Luca wasn't content with just stolen kisses. He wanted more. Soon, Alina found herself entangled in an affair that went far deeper than she ever intended. Meanwhile, Victor noticed the changes in Alina long before she realized it herself. At first, it was small things. Her phone always set face down on the table, her late nights at work that seemed to happen more often, and her increasing disinterest in their usual weekend getaways to the Swiss countryside. Victor wasn't the type to jump to conclusions. He had always trusted Alina completely and, in truth, believed they were just going through a rough patch like all couples did. But as the weeks passed, Victor couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. His suspicions were confirmed one evening when Alina came home late again, smelling a perfume that wasn't hers. Her excuses were weak, her eyes avoiding his as she hurried upstairs for a shower. Victor felt a knot tighten in his chest, but he remained silent. He needed proof. For weeks, Victor watched quietly from the background. He tracked her location without her knowing, noting the times she wasn't where she said she would be. He even managed to check her phone once while she was asleep. That's when he saw Luca's name, a name that appeared far too often in her messages. There were no explicit exchanges, but Victor could read between the lines. One Friday afternoon, when Alina told him she had a business trip to Milan, Victor decided to follow her. The city was only a few hours away, and he had an urgent need to know the truth. As he sat in a cafe near her hotel, his heart sank when he saw her walk out, hand in hand with Luca. It wasn't just a fling. This was real. Alina had fallen for another man. The calm before the storm instead of confronting Alina in a rage. Victor did what he did best. He planned. He didn't want a shouting match. He didn't want her apologies or explanations. He wanted something deeper, something more calculated. Revenge. For the next few weeks, Victor pretended as though nothing had changed. He became more attentive to Alina, showering her with affection and making her feel as though he was oblivious to her betrayal. He even suggested they take a vacation, a long-awaited trip to Santorini, the place they had once dreamed of visiting together. Alina, perhaps feeling guilty or hoping to rekindle their connection, eagerly agreed. They flew to Greece, staying in a luxurious villa overlooking the ocean. The sunsets were breathtaking, the wine endless. But there was a tension between them that Alina couldn't quite place. Victor was being too kind, too perfect. Was he trying too hard? She brushed off the unease, convincing herself that maybe the trip was exactly what they needed to find their way back to each other. But Victor's heart was cold with resolve on their final night in Santorini. After a romantic dinner by the sea, Victor handed Alina a beautifully wrapped gift. Surprised, she smiled and tore the wrapping away, revealing a leather-bound journal. She opened it, expecting something heartfelt. Instead, she found photographs, secret snapshots of her and Luca, hotel receipts, messages they'd exchanged, all meticulously documented. Elena's heart stopped. She looked up at Victor, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Victor, she began. He raised a hand, cutting her off. "I've known for months, Alina. Every lie, every excuse. I knew." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. Victor's face remained expressionless, his voice calm and controlled. "Sorry doesn't fix this. You betrayed me, but I didn't come here for your apology." He stood and walked to the edge of the balcony, looking out at the sea. "I brought you here so you could see the life you're about to lose." Alina couldn't speak, the weight of her actions crashing down on her. "I've already spoken to a lawyer," Victor continued. "When we get back to Zurich, the papers will be ready. You can choose to leave with your dignity, or I can expose everything. Your affair, your lies. I'll leave that decision up to you." Alina stared at him, her mind racing. She had never imagined it would come to this. Her entire world was collapsing, and she was powerless to stop it. The aftermath. Victor left Alina on the balcony that night, the cool breeze of the Aegean Sea whipping through the air. She sat there for hours, contemplating her next move. By morning, she knew she had no choice but to accept the consequences of her actions. They returned to Zurich in silence. The divorce was finalized within weeks. Alina moved out of the villa. Her life forever changed. Victor, on the other hand, found solace in the closure he had given himself. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't lashed out in anger. He had handled the betrayal on his terms, ending, and so the story ends with a husband's quiet revenge and a wife who paid the ultimate price for her secrets. What do you think? Did Victor's calm and calculated response go too far? Or was it justified? Let me know in the comments below.